Amen. Okay, welcome back. So just as a quick review, we reviewed our 7 churches and how they apply not only to the New Testament church, but also to ancient Israel, how they overlap, and that we can walk through the history of ancient Israel and we can see the history of the church. But we also walk through Have I been muted? Like, have you been able to hear so far?
Yes, it was just the last 5 seconds.
Okay.
There was a slight error. Sorry about that.
Sure, I've done that before. So ancient Israel was a theocracy. It's a combination of church and state. And when we consider its fall, we need to think about not only the backsliding of the religion, but also the failure of the state to provide for the people, to implement God's plan so that in the glorious land, they could enjoy life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. There was plans in place to protect the welfare, both religious and social, for the people. So we just walked through that history, and then we came down to the into the new glorious land and how that began during the time of Thyatira, bringing us up to 1798, and how there were 2 groups of people in the glorious land, and they both had different motives for being there. So how we can bring those, I guess, motives into harmony with each other so that there is religious freedom, but also economic prosperity for the people of the glorious land. And then we came down to saw the split in the Protestant churches and the division there between apostate Protestantism and Adventism, the 10 and the 2. None of that is new to us. And we've walked down to the time of the Great Depression and looked at the New Deal that was used to bring the country out of the Depression and the economic policies behind the New Deal. And then we looked at the response to the New Deal, and that is neoliberalism. So I'll just review neoliberalism, what it is. It's a political and economic ideology that emphasizes the efficiency of free markets, minimal government intervention, and the primacy of individual entrepreneurial freedoms. It emerged in the late 20th century and gained prominence through the policies of leaders like Margaret Thatcher in the UK and Ronald Reagan in the US. So its core principles are free markets, so open and competitive markets driving the economic growth, privatisation, so they saw that as a way to reduce government spending and to increase efficiency. A deregulation, so reducing government oversight in industries that would foster innovation and competitiveness. Fiscal austerity, so that means limit government spending, particularly on social programs, on those welfare, those social safety nets, because to want to reduce the deficit, reduce the debt of the country, and globalization, promote free trade and the movement of capital across borders, integrate economies. So we come to 1989. Which way are we going? 1989. It's called a watershed moment regarding neoliberalism. So it's policies that were at its height was the 80s and the 90s, but the watershed moment happened in 1989. That's better. Two things happened in 1989. It was a pivotal year in the global entrenchment of neoliberalism, marked by two significant developments. The first one is what is called the Washington Consensus. I might just... So when something's a watershed, it's the same as saying it's a turning point. But a watershed is actually a literal thing. It's a piece of land that channels two lots of water together. So if you've got a creek or a river, and a watershed is what is between, say, the snow melt and the rainfall coming through a creek as it goes into the river. So we've got two bodies of water meeting. And they call this a watershed moment for neoliberalism. So the Washington Consensus, it codified neoliberal policy. In 1989, a British economist, John Williamson, coined the term Washington Consensus to describe a set of 10 economic policy prescriptions that had gained support among policymakers in Washington, D.C., particularly within institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank and the US Treasury. So there were the three main institutions, the IMF, the World Bank, and the Treasury. And I'll just, so there were 10, fiscal discipline, so we talked about that, government not spending much. The reordering of public expenditure priorities, so they changed their priorities on what the government spent money on. Tax reform, liberalising interest rates, a competitive exchange rate, liberalising trade, so free market, liberalising inward foreign direct investment, so countries outside can invest in the country, just free that up, stop the regulations, privatisation, deregulation, and the legal security for property rights. So this document became synonymous with neoliberalism, and it was often criticised for promoting market fundamentalism at the expense of social welfare. So it was criticised at the time, but it was generally it was accepted by the establishment. So that was the first thing that had that was the watershed moment. That was one river. The river that came was the fall of communism. That opened the door to neoliberalism. 1989 witnessed the dramatic collapse of communist regimes across Eastern Europe, culminating in the fall of the Berlin Wall. This series of events not only ended the Cold War, but also dismantled the ideological alternative to capitalism, leaving neoliberalism as the dominant economic paradigm. In the aftermath, many Eastern European countries transitioned to market economies and often adopted neoliberal policies. They rapidly privatized, deregulated, and they were integrated into global markets. So this all happened very quickly. The convergence of these two events in 1989 solidified neoliberalism's global dominance. And the Washington Consensus provided a blueprint for economic reform that was exported to developing countries worldwide, often as a condition for receiving financial assistance. So if you want help from a strong Western country, then you needed to adopt these economic principles. I didn't do that. Or we won't get help. The ideological vacuum left by the fall of communism allowed neoliberal ideas to spread unchallenged, and it influenced policy decisions across continents. So in summary, 1989 was a watershed moment. It entrenched neoliberalism as the prevailing global economic ideology, shaped policies of nations for decades. So, what did the Democrats do with neoliberalism? They adopted these policies. So it was largely promoted, like I said earlier, Thatcher and Reagan, but the Democratic Party in the United States adopted it from the 1970s through to the 1990s. It marked a really big shift from the New Deal era and economic populism. So there was a turn towards neoliberalism. So there was a faction within the Democratic Party, often referred to as the New Democrats. And they began to embrace neoliberal principles. So they shifted their emphasis away from labor rights and expansive and large social welfare programs. So they used to put their emphasis on the rights of the worker and on social welfare, and they shifted their policies away from that. They had advocated for policies that prioritised economic efficiency, market-based solutions. So President Bill Clinton's administration, they really epitomised this turn in the Democratic Party. So he included significant policy decisions such as NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, a welfare reform, financial deregulation, and they reflected a commitment to the benefits of globalization. And similarly, Barack Obama's administration, 2009 to 2017, continued certain of those neoliberal policies, even though they did try to address some of the shortcomings. I have done previous studies on how Clinton brought in China into the World Trade Organization in 2001. And that was I won't go into that again today, but that is another subject that is worth revisiting. The China shock that resulted from that has also impacted the rise of MAGA. So in recent years, there's been quite a lot of infighting in the Democrat Party over neoliberalism, because there's members that understand that it has contributed to economic disparity, inequality. So why? What went wrong? So I'd like to share, let's see. Share screen. So in 2018, Ian Bremmer of the Eurasia Group, you'll remember him from the media broadcast articles on the global risks that they put out each year. He wrote a book, and it's called Us versus Them, The Failure of Globalism. So again, written in 2018. And we're just going to read some portions from this book. And we'll just start with there's just a couple of paragraphs from the introduction that I'd like to share. He says, why do Palestinians throw rocks? To attract attention?
Elder Terrie, we can't see what you're reading. You've got...
Oh, you can't?
We've just got like a Google search with Amazon Kindle and Kindle Library. Yeah.
Oh. Oh, and I think I've lost it now. Have I?
It looked like you perhaps hadn't clicked on the right screen to share. I don't know.
Maybe I didn't. Can you see this?
Thanks.
Does that show? Introduction?
Yes. Introduction. Us versus them. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you. Why do Palestinians throw rocks? To attract attention? To improve their lives? To make progress toward creation of a Palestinian state? They throw rocks because they want others to see that they've had enough, that they can't be ignored, and that they can break things. Voting isn't helping them. Outsiders don't care. Where are the opportunities to bring about change? There is nothing left but to throw rocks. In that sense, there will soon be Palestinians all over the world. Workers everywhere fear lost jobs and wages as a shifting global economy and technological change leave them behind. Citizens fear surging waves of strangers who alter the face and voice of the country they know. They fear terrorists and criminals who kill for reasons no one can understand. They fear that government cannot or will not protect them. Gripped by anxiety, they get angry. To make themselves seen, heard, and felt, they start to throw rocks. Then the call for help is answered. Donald Trump tells an excited overflow crowd that he sees them, that he sees their enemies, and that only he can take them back to the promised land. Senators Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders tell cheering fans that big corporations and Wall Street banks are robbing them blind. Champions of Brexit tell voters they must reclaim Britain's borders and reject laws and rules imposed by Europeans. European populists tell followers they will lead the charge of patriots against foreigners and globalists. These leaders aren't arguing that government should be bigger or smaller, that it should tax less or spend more. They're challenging the right of elites to make the rules that govern our lives. They tell citizens they've been cheated of their chance to succeed and that the media is in on it. They promise to comfort the afflicted, afflict the comfortable, and burn down the houses of power. We can attack these populists, mock them, or dismiss them, but they know something important about the people they're talking to, and they understand that many people believe that globalism and globalization have failed them. These would-be leaders have a talent for drawing boundaries between people. They offer a compelling vision of division, of us versus them, of the worthy citizen fighting for his rights against the entitled or grasping thief. Depending on the country and the moment, them may mean rich people or poor people, foreigners or religious, racial and ethnic minorities. It can mean supporters of a rival political party or people who live in a different part of the country. It can mean politicians, bankers, or reporters. However applied, it's a tried and true political tool. So what Ian Bremmer is wanting to get us to understand in this book is what are the roots of the people's frustrations. Obviously, rocks don't solve the problem, but he wants to look into what is the problem. How, what's let these people down? I'll just read from here. As a young adult. As a young adult, the American dream came wrapped up in a package of globalism, a belief in universal interdependence and international exchange that seemed to provide paths to prosperity for both the poor boy I was and the successful man I hoped to become. Globalism seemed a generous choice. It's the game everyone can win. Embrace capitalism, lower the walls, hire, build, and expand. People who've made it or who believe they'll get a fair shot are drawn to globalism. I devoted my professional life to it. Why not? The system worked for me, and it has lifted hundreds of millions around the world from poverty. Why can't it one day work for everyone? It didn't, and it hasn't. And then he goes on to explain about a riot that occurred in 1999 at the World Trade Organization. It began as a peaceful riot, and then it became quite violent. In 2008, years of deregulation, bad bets, and bad faith, brought down some of the world's biggest banks, sending shockwaves around the world. Next came the Occupy Wall Street movement, leaving bankers worried that the vagrants might get violent. The World Economic Forum at Davos that year was fascinating. No one knew how bad things would get for the global economy or what would happen next. But then came the bailouts for banks, which stabilized the markets. China's leaders injected billions to keep China's economic engine humming. The world's elites went back to business, and Wall Street's occupiers went home. So 2008 was a mini eruption. It's also a harbinger of what was to come. Oops, sorry. The Arab world's aborted revolutions got our attention, and the refugee crisis it triggered brought them closer to home. But it wasn't until Britain voted to leave the European Union that the indictment of globalism became unavoidably obvious. And then Donald J. Trump was elected President of the United States. Today, the watchword is inequality. We have always known the world remained an unfair place, but most of the world's elites believed with plenty of evidence that globalism was the solution, not the problem. But while the elites convene for debate, more people are getting frustrated. So I'll just stop share there. So yes, this is Ian Bremmer. Of the Eurasia Group. It should be a name we're pretty familiar with. The 2018 book. So there are sort of more history that I'd like to share there, but I haven't read it all yet. Time is not a friend. But I just want to see the point that globalization, these neoliberal policies, have let people down. So why does globalization fail? So globalization is a process of increasing global interconnectedness, and it did bring about a significant amount of economic growth. It lifted many out of poverty. So globalization lifted the majority of the Chinese population out of poverty, got their industry rolling, gave people jobs, and created a huge middle class. So it can be seen in a number of countries around the world. But there are a few reasons why it gets the criticism it does today, why it failed. While globalization has generated wealth, its wealth has not been evenly distributed across developing countries. In the West, middle and working class populations have experienced job losses and wage stagnation. So their wages haven't gone up and job opportunities have gone down, and that's in the West. It's led to a sense of economic disenfranchisement. That means people feel left out economically, and that's a large section of the population. It has resulted in rapid cultural changes, increased immigration. Globalization is associated with increased immigration, and that leads people to have fears about their national identity and social cohesion. And these things get exploited by political figures like Donald Trump and Marine Le Pen, and that it just fosters that us versus them mentality that deepens societal divisions. Globalization has accelerated the consumption of finite resources and increased environmental degradation because the emphasis is on mass production, consumerism. So there's higher carbon emissions, resource depletion, and of course raising concerns about sustainability. globalization has undermined democratic institutions because it empowers multinational corporations at the expense of national sovereignty. We can see that with what's happened with Silicon Valley and the power that these multinational corporations have over countries and democracy. This has led to policy decisions that prioritize corporate interests over the general populace. Globalization, because of the perceived fears and failures connected with globalization, it has fueled populist and nationalist movements worldwide. These movements capitalize on public resentment toward elites and perceived threats from globalization, and it has led to increased political polarization. So we see the the polarizing of I don't think it matters what country you're in, but it's very very prominent in the United States. So while globalization brought about significant economic wealth advancements, it also brought about economic inequality, cultural tensions, environmental concerns, and political instability. So there's been I guess a large reevaluation of neoliberalism policies and how they are put into practice. So how did that result in the MAGA movement? Sorry, just notes are all over. So MAGA and what's the tension between MAGA and globalization? Okay, so the MAGA movement, Make America Great Again movement, that's associated with Donald Trump, it doesn't align neatly with neoliberalism. They do both advocate for free markets, but MAGA separates from them quite significantly when it comes to economic nationalism, protectionism, and also that skepticism towards globalization. So MAGA is fearful of globalization, even though it does believe in free markets, small government, but it's more nationalistic. So when it comes to trade and globalization, neoliberalism promotes free trade, global economic integration. MAGA policies are focused on renegotiating trade agreements, and that's what you see Trump doing since he's come into office, imposing tariffs and prioritizing domestic industries to protect American jobs. And that's what our news cycle has been filled with this year. With the tariffs, it's all to get more industrial jobs back into the United States. That's the theory. So So that differs from neoliberalism. Government intervention. Neoliberalism advocates minimal government interference in markets, whereas MAGA, it does support selective government actions. So, but not for welfare, but for prioritizing domestic industries. So giving money to the billionaires in Silicon Valley, to Musk, to support their industries. So we don't mind doing that. We spend the money on those things, on industries and on businesses, but not on social welfare. As long as those businesses are working towards national objectives, so building up the country, not global interests. Neoliberalism often supports more open immigration policies because it believes in, it needs labour. So you need to have flexibility on that to bring labourers in to the country to work in different areas. MAGA movement, however, has, as you'd be aware, believes in strict immigration control. Viewing strict control as essential to national security and economic stability. So they're dangerous people, immigrants are dangerous to bring into the country, and also they're taking our jobs. And they're filling our universities. And so that's why our people can't get into universities. So we see all those wars waging at the moment too. And neoliberalism tends to focus on economic efficiency and individualism, often downplaying national identity. MAGA places a strong emphasis on American nationalism, traditional values, and cultural conservatism. So I guess neoliberalism is more about economics, the state, wealth. MAGA, you can see here where it becomes more about their religion, their culture, their identity. And this is where another place where they clash. So while the MAGA movement incorporates some elements that overlap with neoliberal economic policies, such as tax cuts and deregulation, its core philosophy represents a departure from neoliberalism by emphasizing economic nationalism, protectionism, and a strong national identity. MAGA offers an alternative framework that challenges the globalist and free market principles central to neoliberal thought. So basically, what neoliberalism brought was wealth, but only wealth to not to the whole populace. And so jobs were lost. It created fear, and especially the government intervention in the 2008 financial crisis, and that began the rise of the Tea Party, which was the, I guess, the roots of the MAGA movement. You have people that are let down by the system, and someone comes along, Donald Trump, Marine Le Pen, Viktor Orban, who says, I understand your problems. I'm the only one that can help you. And the people are asking for a king, and they don't understand what they're asking for, and what they get will place them in a worse situation than what they were already in. So we can understand where the MAGA people came from, what let them down, and what let them down was not just the work of the Seventh Kingdom, but also the work of the Sixth. Now, when we say seventh doesn't just mean Republican Party, Sixth doesn't just mean Democrat Party. Ian Bremmer listed Bernie Sanders and wait a minute, I'll find her name.
Elizabeth Warren.
Thank you. Liz Warren as also part of those stokers of fear so it's not, this isn't just about political parties. The mistakes are on both sides and both extremes. So when we had the Vespers of 2022, we learned about paleoconservatism and neoconservatives. And there is also an economic side to that as well that we see in these neoliberalism. It is a reactionary response to the New Deal. The New Deal, though imperfect, if put into practice, along with the civil rights era, it would have created a glorious land for the, for people to have life, liberty, and pursue happiness. But we see it 1989. This is the history. Acts 27 gives us the history of the Sixth Kingdom, the United States and Adventism that were to be the protectors and defenders of God's people. And in 1989 onwards, part of the failure of this ship to protect and defend were the economic policies put in place, not just by Republicans, but also by Democrats, and the rejection of New Deal policies. This would end up bringing about the 2008 financial crisis, which I believe is a harbinger of things to come. That when we think about the collapse of this system, that it will be largely an economic collapse. But the rise of these movements is due to people's being basically let down and not protected by those that were put in place to represent them. So that's all I have for today. I was half expecting to be to have interpreted. So usually you lose half your material when you've got somebody interpreting. So perhaps now I could open up to any questions or comments.
Esinian.
Okay, thank you. Elder Terrie, can you hear me?
Yeah, big voice. I'll turn my sound up, but I think it's up.
Okay, thank you. I just want to understand the economic framework of how tariffs works between neoliberalism and MAGA. Because if we go back to the New Deal, I think the then president just unleashed tariff on a healthy, economic background, like to offset the market and for equality purpose. So in regard to neoliberalism, which is a reaction to the New Deal, how do they approach the issue about tariffs as opposed to MAGA movement? Thank you.
So the neoliberalists would there were some tariffs, but if the way Clinton was heading was to have just free markets, that all those barriers would have been pulled down. So tariffs have their place, but I mean, if you look at the tariffs that have been put in place, they were, you know, like, you know, 3% or something, you know. I don't think they were very, very large, but they were with the depression. That was that I guess attempt to protect the economy at the time. So nothing was ever to be in concrete. Though, you know, these things were meant to be flexible. So it's not that tariffs are evil, it's the use of them. And so we can see that even a free market with no tariffs actually brought in, could bring in inequality as well, in that the global South weren't benefiting. The rich got richer and poor got poorer. I'm not a political scientist. I don't claim to have my head fully around all these economic policies.
So what I'm getting is for example, as you have said, tariffs on themselves are not bad. For example, tariffs, government use them for revenue collection, for restriction purpose, and the third one is for what we call reciprocal tariffs. And based on your explanation, I think neoliberalism at least they use it for good purpose. That is for revenue collection and restriction. But I think for reciprocal purpose, I think the MAGA movement work on that one, just to to protect their market and not to isolate themselves. So that's why I was trying to see how neoliberalism and MAGA movement they approach the idea of tariff and also the New Deal.
Yeah, so globalism would have eventually have brought about a totally free market economy. That's where some wanted to head, and I guess the reaction against that is this this insular protectionism that is kind of, well, really way over the top.
Thank you.
No worries.
Hello, Terrie.
Yes.
Yeah, is it a cause and effect relationship between neoliberalism and MAGA, or is it just a growth, something of that sort?
Yes, I think that MAGA is certainly a cause and effect from globalization, and the neoliberal policies that promote globalization have largely failed across the world as far as equality goes. I think the real catchword here is equality, and it hasn't brought in global equality in any sense, even though in some countries there have been rich that have benefited. The class divide is huge.
So what you mean to say is, when we see neoliberalism, we see just an economic facet of it, but when we come to MAGA, it encompasses all of lifestyle and everything all together, packed in one deal, picking some elements from there and adding on to what they believe should have been done in the first place. Am I getting you right?
Did you just say that again? Sorry, it's cold here.
I'm saying when we have neoliberalism, we have just the economic portion of it. But when you come to MAGA, it's encompassing everything. It's like the full package. Yeah. So is that what we are talking about here?
Yes, this is just one aspect of, because it's MAGA and the New Republican Party. So it's a combination of church and state. So there are cultural, religious tensions at play, and then there is the economic disparity, and I guess they come together. It's like you know, there's the roots of MAGA are the Tea Party, which was an economic reaction, a rising up of people because of the 2008 financial crisis and the government's reaction to that. But it has just simmered into MAGA.
Because I feel like we have undermined the role that the Democratic Party was playing in this, but the Democratic Party had a lot to do in what is happening right now. As in, we have been so much focused on the Republican Party, but the Democratic Party had a very big hand in whatever is happening here. So the blame goes to them as well. So I see the point where we're saying the Sixth Kingdom comprises of both the Republican Party and then the Democratic Party. Is it what you're saying? And so
No, I'm not, sorry, go on.
You
I'm
have
just
not
saying the Sixth Kingdom is at fault. Like the Sixth Kingdom fails,
fails, yeah.
just like the Southern Kingdom failed. But
Mm.
we, you know, to think of the Sixth Kingdom as good, I guess my attempt here is to see one of the reasons why the Sixth Kingdom failed to protect and defend the people.
So it's not just doing its job function.
Sorry, say again?
It doesn't do its job function, you mean?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thanks. I
So,
think there were a number of hands up.
okay, I'll let you, could you just
I
lead for
think
me?
the last one who asked a question, I think he's satisfied if I understood correctly. But you seem to want to add a bit more, Elder Terrie. Or
I can't remember what I was going to say now.
okay,
What was the
sorry.
thing?
We
Yeah.
had if it comes up again, maybe you can
Yeah.
bring it. So we had, I think, Dennis, then Titus, then Leonard. And if you have questions, please raise your hands up so that so that you know people can have their turn. Thank you.
Okay.
Why
Dennis?
remove Dennis?
Okay, thank you. Hi everyone. So
Hi,
for me, I have two questions. So one, my question was somehow related to the last person who spoke, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I still didn't get the clarity. So when you started the class, you wanted to show the failure of the Sixth Kingdom, and then you took us to the perspective of economy. So you are speaking about globalism, you are speaking about deep MAGA, and you try to demonstrate that neoliberalism is what results to deep MAGA. So I was trying to think, because we always associate globalism with the characteristic of the Sixth Kingdom. And maybe in other studies, in other perspectives, we see globalism as a good thing. And here you're trying to demonstrate that the same characteristics that the Sixth Kingdom has had, which we have been branding it a good thing, is actually what has led to deep MAGA. So my question is, what is the failure of the Sixth Kingdom? Is it bringing a globalistic model that has worked the bad way, like it has not acted to the expectation, or is the failure of the Sixth Kingdom to bring a model that has resulted into deep MAGA? Or I just need that clarity, because it seems as if you are showing there are differences with globalism and MAGA, but in this study they seem to be all leading to a bad thing.
Yes, but according to Ian Bremmer, and I guess history is agreeing, the globalization has failed. There's a difference between globalism and globalization. So globalism is the theory, the philosophy. Globalization is the practice. how it's implemented. So
So the theory is correct, but the way they have practiced is where it has brought problems. That's what you are saying.
yeah, wouldn't it sounds good. Like we talk about you know, unipolar and multipolar. You know, unipolar bad, multipolar good. So we think multipolar and we think globalization, but somehow that it just hasn't worked. It has failed. It has failed people, individuals, the poor. So the days are gone when the young people today can go and buy property. You can't get into the property market. It's the people of the 70s and 80s, they benefited from globalization. They benefit from all these policies. And then from 2008 onwards, there has been no benefit. Actually, up until 2000, that bubble burst, and people have found it harder and harder to get ahead. So, but the people of the 80s and 90s that got ahead, they got their pension packets, they've got their investment properties, you know, and you've got more millionaires and billionaires than ever there was, but there are such a small percentage of the population. The majority of the population can't, you know, the days of being able to get ahead by working hard, they're gone. And that's what MAGA is feeling. That's what prompted MAGA. So I wish I could explain more articulately how it failed, but it did. It failed. It could have worked. So what were the mechanisms that that could have worked? I guess I'll read the rest of the book, and I invite you to do those Google searches and to
Okay.
research.
Okay. So my second question, which is the last, was based on your first class. You tried to take us through the history of the churches. And I saw the parallel of the internal and the external. You also spoke about the institutions. You mentioned about Daniel 2 and Acts 27. And so what was coming into my mind is when you speak of the failure of the sixth kingdom, I took in the perspective of the external institution, that is USA. And I was also thinking about the internal. So could we also have thoughts on what is the failure of the internal of Adventism? And in addition to that, we know of the vow that says that Adventists will always be Laodicea, that they will never become Babylon. But actually what we are seeing now is that Adventists have exactly the same worldview as Protestantism in America. So how do we argue that? Would we say that the worldview Adventists have on culture and inequality and patriarchy is still Laodicea? Or would we review, or what would we call that description? Is it still Laodicea or Babylon?
It's Laodicea. Jerusalem can't be Babylon and Babylon can't be Jerusalem. They're two different cities. But Jerusalem can be in captivity to Babylon. Babylon can control it. So basically, once you get to here, the church just remains in captivity. Whether you call it Laodicea, whether you call it Thyatira, as I laid out before, they're the same condition. So you get to 1989, and what does the ship decide to do? To remain in death. Is that what it's called? Remain.
Adramitium, I shall abide in death.
That's it. Thank you. It abides in death. Laodicea is a death-like condition because you're asleep, and sleep is death. So they're going to remain in death. So over that 1 to 6 years, the 4 destructive insects of Joel have done their work. You get to 1989, there's nothing left. And I think I said last week, I think it was a study last week, I can say this because the person isn't watching, but I'm doing taking a person through the vows who's very new to this movement and was brought up an Adventist, born and bred Adventist. Hardest thing I've ever had to do. Knows nothing. When we say everything, you know, that it's all eaten away, basic Adventism is lost. The basic things you've got to explain to somebody who's been brought up an Adventist. The church has let the people down. It didn't feed the people. Over those 1 to 6 years, the efforts went into the theological seminaries so that you've got an elite theologians that hold the keys to these truths. And then you've got all the populace that they don't need to know that. They just need to look to Jesus, whatever that means. You go to an Adventist church, and I haven't been in one for years, but oh boy, did I ever get sick of listening to that. So this is where the church has let the people down, but it's not about economics, but it is about riches, and it's the riches of truth. So 1989, it just continues on. It continues in its death-like slumber. But it's not Babylon. I think if you remember Elder Jeff, what did he used to say? Laodicea is a worse condition than Babylon because of the light and advantages they've had. You'd be better off in Babylon. And when you look back at the history and the destruction of Jerusalem, yeah, you may as well have been brought up in Babylon. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
No worries. We got Leonard.
Yes, Elder. Happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath.
Now, in regards to MAGA, in studies in time past, you said MAGA is divided into two. We have dark and deep. Is it in order to say that at National Sunday Law, we had dark MAGA in play, that is Trumpism, and as we approach worldwide Sunday Law, we have deep MAGA taking control, which is Fancism.
So dark MAGA is not Trumpism. Trumpism is the new Republican Party. It's what we could call the state. MAGA is divided. MAGA, they're not all in agreement. So when we think of MAGA, think back to the French International Camp meeting last year. You've got Catholicism, you've got Protestantism, you've got barstool people. I can't remember what do you call them, barstoolists or something. You know, you've got all your isms. They are divided. The only thing that really unites them all is Trump. If you took Trump out of the picture, everything would fall apart. So Trump is the unifying, he's the king. He's the one that's going to fix everything for them. And I did a study last week to show that while he's the commander-in-chief, J.D. Vance, according to Politico magazine, is the communicator-in-chief. So J.D. Vance is the ideologue. He's the manifestation of MAGA. And Trump is just king over the whole bang lot. But yeah, so dark and deep are the divisions within MAGA. And then you've got the new Republican Party. Now, of course, you've got senators and representatives that are also, MAGA people. and you've got MAGA people that are also, you know, in politics. So there's blending of the two. It's a combination of church and state. And what we've done is we've divided it so that we can see the relationship between church and state. So we can see MAGA, so we can see the religion, and we can see the beast. We can see the new Republican Party. But I wouldn't call deep MAGA Trumpism. It's just a division within, and they're not, dark isn't as rooted in MAGA as deep is, because deep will take you back 2012, 2014. Dark, it's only 220, 221. Does that help?
Yes, thank you. Now, a second one. When we study about the fifth kingdom, we see that when you read Revelation 13:5, it is given power and a mouth. So it has power. And when you go to the seventh kingdom, we also see that it has power. Now, which is this power and how is it acquired? Is it providentially, or how is it? This power that is being spoken of.
Oh, so when power was given to the papacy, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the armies of Clovis. So the church got state power. So MAGA policies can be put into practice through the government. Is that what you mean or looking for?
Can you repeat, please?
So I'll just go to Revelation 13, because power, seat, and great authority is given by who to who? Let me just look it up. Okay, so the dragon. So the dragon is state power. The state gives the church power and seat and great authority. So I think that's what the Republican Party has done to MAGA. It was just a movement, and now it's in control of the government. If you look at the party policy that was voted on July 15 at the RNC in 2024, it's actually called the Make America Great Again policy. The Make America Great Again party platform, or something like that. It's MAGA. That is the party platform. And it has power. It has the seat, it has the executive branch, it has the power of the executive branch, it has the great authority of the executive branch. And I would include also the courts and the Congress in that too. It's got everything. Is that okay?
Okay. Thank you.
No worries. If you're looking for something more there, I'm not sure what, there might be more to it than that. Titus?
Happy Sabbath, Elder and everyone.
Titus.
Yeah, so when you spoke about neoliberalism, I remembered the 2022 Vespers class by Elder Tess, and Elder Tess telling us the problem is the paleoconservatives, yes, I think, and their freedom, the ideology rooted in freedom. So mine is just a comment. When you talk about neoliberalism, I remembered the many programs in the world that have been adopted as a result of neoliberalism to root out problems, to root out poverty. And I was working in a microfinance, and microfinance institutions, they are found mostly in developing countries like our country in Kenya. And the model was based on liberalism, and it was established in 1970s, 1980s to help the developing countries out of poverty. And they said we don't need to use much money as governments from developed countries, and we can just root out poverty by establishing institutions to give credit programs, like to give loans to the poor. Like they rid themselves of the work that they should do in helping the poor and in eradicating poverty as governmental institutions. And then they give those roles to multinational corporations, as you said, and institutions. And the problem is, when I was working in that institution, 90% of the time it was not working, because these institutions, because they are not regulated, they afford like these loans to mostly it's women in rural areas who are poor, and it has high interest rates, and it in fact fuels these people into more poverty. And I remember the founder of microfinance, Muhammad Yunus, was awarded by Obama, who is a Democrat. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, and 50 years later, in 2025, it's not working. And even many people here in the group know those institutions like Kenya Women Microfinance, Judy Kilimo. They confiscate property from women, and these women, they blame themselves, thinking that they are the ones who have caused themselves to be poor, and it's not. It's structural, and poverty is structural problem, and many of the problems in the world is structural problem. If it's patriarchy, then it requires structural solutions like good institutions. But neoliberalism, as I'd say, is the real cause of the problems in the world, and even the rise of MAG. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Titus. Yes, and Obama did try to bring about some reforms to kind of pull back some of the earlier policies, but it just wasn't enough. And then they were forced to help the banks, and that just didn't go over well with people. So yes, it's pushing that across the world has had some negative effects. So thank you for sharing that. And we have another hand.
Snyder Machoge.
Snyder? I see Grace here too. I think if Grace, if you've written to me and I haven't answered, I haven't forgotten you. If it's the Grace that's written to me. I was actually pulled your message up the other day. I want to thank you very much for it and what you sent me, and I will reply. So yes, sorry, new hand.
Okay, thank you. It's Roger speaking through Snyder's.
Okay, Roger.
So I wanted just to do some follow-up. So you said neoliberalism was a reactionary to the New Deal. Is that right?
Yes, but don't hold me to that term. So it was a reaction to the New Deal. Whether you could actually, call it reactionary in the strict definition of it, I'm not so sure. But it was. I think that's right. But it was a reaction to the New Deal. The people were not happy
Okay. The neoliberalism has led to a type of globalization that has failed. I think that's what you have said.
Yes.
So is it correct to say then that the Sixth Kingdom should have really followed on with the New Deal policies, and that New Deal policies will have led to a kind of globalization that will have succeeded and bring equality and prosperity to people?
So I'm not an expert, but that sounds pretty good to me. There was no doubt that the New Deal needed improving, just like civil rights. They needed to keep going with the civil rights, with the Voting Rights Act. The reason why the CRA and the VRA have gone backwards is because they never went forwards with it. They thought that they'd had accomplished something. So the New Deal, I would say, is the same thing. It was something that needed tweaking, improving, with flexibility. And, I don't think any of us would, our automatic reaction is to think that globalization's got to be good, interconnecting everybody. But somehow it failed by doing it the wrong way. So yes, I don't, the New Deal wouldn't have been protectionist. It would have grown and had an influence across the world.
Sorry. Okay. Therefore, we could say that partly what I can see here is a failure of the Sixth Kingdom in failing to carry on with the New Deal and improve it, and rather shift and espouse the New Deal neoliberalism policies that have led to a failed globalization.
That sounds,
Okay.
I stand to be corrected, but yep, I think that's right. For some of us oldies that are familiar with the 80s, they were decades of excess. And I think people got excited and thought, well, if we just keep going with this, well, everybody will be rich. But it hasn't worked that way. Sandra has a question in the chat. I'll just read it. Would you mind explaining more about neoliberalism? Is it based on economy? So I've, if I could suggest that you Google, because I've done a fair bit of reading on neoliberalism and on the New Deal, and the differences between them. So I think the better answer, and instead of me just reading over the material I've already given, because that's really the limit of my knowledge, that it would benefit just to do your own research on that. Google can be a good friend. Elson?
Yeah, thank you so much, Elder. A question towards the reaction that Titus has brought up. I don't know, something just clicked into my mind about the structural type of elevating problems that the society have had. He's given an example that he used to see in the microfinance that he was using. Such that these are structures that came up to help women as far as finance economy is concerned. But then these are what actually led into more problem. A question comes up in my mind. Is it that the structures that have been constructed perhaps by the government purporting to be helping really are geared towards reconstructing or deepening the problems that have existed? I do not know how I can tie it to, for example, to liberal feminism. I do understand liberal feminism as a theory, or rather maybe a thought process of trying to help women, but through the system. Is this the reason as to why we're saying that even liberal feminism has actually failed? Though we know there are some progress that we've had through these structures as far as liberal feminism is concerned, trying to help here and there. But does it really mean that these systems will always fail? Or I don't know if you get my problem. Is there something that we can do as people who have been called to understand these models that can entirely help in as far as economy, politics, and all this is concerned? So, for example, as liberal feminism, we do know that the opposite of that is basically radical feminism that try to uproot the structure themselves, to overturn everything. And then I do not understand if it has overturned or rather uprooted these kind of structures. What is it that is supposed to be in place that is completely going to work as far as these structures are concerned? Thank you. If I'm clear.
Yep, I think so. Thank you. I think we're beyond the point of no return. There's nothing that can be fixed. So we can look back and see what could have been. But even when it comes to feminism, 2020 and feminism has now lost course. It's only going backwards for women. There will be no improvement. And it's the same with the economy. So we are on the trajectory for everything to implode. All the advances on women and also the economy and everything connected to those things. So what could have been has been lost because of the failure of the Sixth Kingdom, because of those two boats, those two institutions that failed to protect and defend. I can't articulate the economic plan that could have saved it all. All I know is what I'm reading that has brought it all to failure. And the New Deal was a success. The Civil Rights Act was a success, but it wasn't meant to stay there. It was meant to improve, solidify. Yes, I would never have thought that globalization would have been a bad thing, but its implementation has turned out to put a lot of countries and a lot of individuals in poverty. So while we can thank liberal feminism for the advances that we've got, it hasn't gone far enough, and radical feminism really only belongs to this movement now, largely. And with the death of Helen Reddy, we know that we've lost the voice, and we can see that in the criminal convictions of Donald Trump that have led to nothing. And I think the next thing we'll see is he's going to pardon Sean Diddy Combs. So it's just, there is no, justice is trodden down in the street. I'm not sure I've fully answered your question. Is that sufficient?
I get your thought process, yeah.
Okay, I'll just answer this one here. MAGA falls into two factions, dark and deep. What is their economic stand with the current division in MAGA? So I've been through those, the differences. We know MAGA is deep MAGA, total protectionism. Dark MAGA, that's Elon Musk. He wants to bring in immigrants. He wants to bring in elite immigrants, those brilliant mathematical minds from India and China and wherever to work in Silicon Valley. So yeah, they're not totally anti-immigration. You've got Apple that's in China. So all these tech bros, they're not deep MAGA. You know, that's part of the division. But they're all bending the knee to Donald Trump, because if they want to get ahead, if they want their companies protected, if they want free market reign with no government intervention, then they've got to bend the knee to Donald Trump. And if you've followed the Trump-Musk breakup, Trump has said, oh, well, I'm going to take away his, whatever they're called, financial perks that the government give him. So that's the warning to everybody. You be nice to me, or I'm going to give retribution. That's not how government's meant to work. A lot of these things, it's so shocking every day that it just whizzes by us. But he's just sent a message out to all industries, to all CEOs and companies: don't upset me or you'll pay. You know, it's tyrannical, really. So yeah, deep and dark MAGA do differ on these things. It's deep MAGA that are foundational, they're rooted in the ideology, they're not going anywhere at this point. And we might have to finish up soon. So I see 2 questions. So 2 hands up. We'll answer these and then we'll leave it for there. So Atabo?
Thank you so much, Elder. Just a follow-up concern. I'm looking at the political scientists. They are introducing some terms in explaining this economic model. They are going back to the New Deal and they are introducing this term like a Keynesian model, which is actually the government, you know, to take full control of the market economy to introduce this idea of equality.
Yes.
And then they're introducing this neoliberalism, which many Americans see it as a threat to, you know, I mean, they see it as a threat to globalization. So my question is, they're also introducing this word of post-neoliberal order. So where can you mark the post-neoliberal order? Because I don't see them giving that framework. Because I'm looking at the board there, you have your mark 1989, neoliberalism. But where can we mark post-neoliberal order?
The post-neoliberal order?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know. I just know that neoliberalism was 70s were really 80s and 90s. So I don't know, is post-liberal after the 90s? Is that the policies of Obama, where he tried to bring in, you know, he tried to tweak it bit, and Biden, yeah. They did try to, but the rot had set in and they didn't do enough.
I think it's just an article from Foreign Affairs. I think it's very good. I can just share with you. You try to figure out their analysis.
Post means after. So
sure.
It must be Obama. So yeah, please share and share amongst yourselves.
Okay,
that would be interesting. Thank you. Philip?
Okay, thank you so much, Terrie. My question is very small. I've just been benefited by the question that I've raised. I thought someone might actually talk about. Yeah. So the question is, you talk about Donald Trump being king, and then the vice president as the ideologues or the communicator. Now, I want to understand something. We know that Donald Trump is going to, the reign of Donald Trump is going to actually end within these terms, and We are in the time period for Sunday law to the universal Sunday with the close of probations. So when Donald Trump is going out, who is going to be? And you mean Donald Trump being the king is like an overall that combine or that bind together the mega movement that is that have different views or different opinions. So when Donald Trump is going to go out, maybe in his second term, he's not going to have the third terms. I don't know whether that is possible. Also, who is going to remain as the bind or the one who is going to pull this together? It seemed like a king, no one else can play his role. So who is really going to do that? That is the question I'm asking. Or do we expect Donald Trump to have the whole dispensation from now to the close of probations and even to second coming? So that is that question. Another question that I don't want to ask before, but let me ask it, is we know the this Elon Musk now is working with Donald Trump's Department of Dodge. I want to understand what is his role like. What is his role in this? Is he? He's not the church. Definitely, he's not a mega. I don't know if he's the mega, but is he part of Trumpism? What is his? Maybe if he's going to have the differences with Donald Trump, is there anything significant about that? Because I have just read about what is called the Big Beautiful Bills, and it seemed like that bill is going to give them some kind of tensions. So I want to understand if that tension is significant or less significant.
So, okay, second questions first, because it's sort of fresh on my mind. If you think of Elon Musk as belonging to the church, because he's not state, he's not an elected official, he's not a part of the government, even though he was given a role that was dodgy. It's not a real role. He's part of the church. He fell for the Messiah with the assassination attempt. But even before then, Stephen Miller was working with him and getting him to donate money even before the assassination attempt. But it was the assassination attempt that brought him out. So think of him as church. And when you think of the church, when you think of MAGA, it is divided because it is Babylon. It is a mixture of everybody. The only cohesion they have is under Donald Trump. So we know Donald Trump is the last president. There won't be anything to follow. And even if he was to die tomorrow, he's what binds them all together. He's the charismatic, hate to say that, but he is. He's the one that they adore. J.D. Vance could never take his place. He is an ideologue. Politico called him communicator-in-chief, the MAGA prince. So think of Trump as the MAGA king, J.D. Vance as the MAGA prince. Is he next in line to the throne? Some say so, but we know prophetically there is no replacement on that throne. I think that what will happen is it will implode. If you think of 1989, the Soviet Union, it just imploded. Ancient Israel, it was imploded. God sent Babylon to save it in the end, to take away captives so they could be safe and go back and rebuild. Because they didn't know they were doing that, but we can see it in the great plan because it just would have imploded. Who else? Yeah, kingdoms die from within. It's not some great external effect on it that brings it down. It will implode. Will it affect externally? Yes, because I mean, both northern and southern kingdoms were disintegrating but there were external forces, Assyria and Babylon. And so there are external forces, but really the rot is within themselves. So take Trump out of the picture and it will all fall apart. He is the king. He is the glue. He is the Messiah. J.D. Vance, yes, he is lauded in his role, but they don't want him in another role. They don't want him on the throne. He doesn't have the draw power, but he can speak on behalf of MAGA and speak very well. He articulates the message clearly, more clearly than Trump does. But Trump has the power of cult of personality that J.D. Vance doesn't have. In the same respect, I would say the same with Putin. They have that cult of personality. You took away Stalin and nobody replaced Stalin. It all started to crumble from there.
So, so it is Donald Trump throughout from now to second coming?
So I only have visibility in this dispensation. We only have visibility in this dispensation. Whether Trump will be alive at the second coming, I don't know, but there won't be anything to take the place. So if we go back to ancient Rome, or, you know, the Rome pre-first Advent, you've got Pompey, you've got Cassius, you've got Octavian, who become Augustus, you've got Julius, you've got all these Romans, and we have to think of Trump as sort of a combination of them all. You also have Herod. So I think he's a type of all of those. How it plays out after close of probation, I would be making a mistaken methodology to even guess that. We have to focus on this dispensation, what's leading up to the close of probation. And he'll be on the throne for close of probation. Then we would expect that kingdom will begin to crumble.
Yeah, but if yeah, you are really right. Even in the predictions then that was made by Jebediah about him being the last president, and I don't have really a question there, but it seemed like when he lost the first when he lost for the second time, we actually withdraw and then we try to explain another way. Now he's coming back. I don't know if we have to go back to the same explanation, because there's these people, we have explained them in the past, they're still pushing. Is he now the last president? Is it what you're saying that is being explained right now? What's really going on? That is one. I want you to maybe have a thought on that. But I am seeing, if you believe in implications, like you can imply that if really we have the seven kingdom, and by implication, you really know that seventh kingdom is going to second coming. So it would be very, I think it is a good idea that we don't have to predict beyond this dispensation, but the implications say that we are going beyond these dispensations. So that is what I am saying. But is our idea of Donald Trump being the last president treated like another question? Is it sounding the same way it sounded with the first messenger, or are we going with the
it never changed.
With our...
We never stopped believing that he was going to be the last president, even when he lost the 2020 election. Trump was the last president. So if we think of the seven thunders. So the two horn powers. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the two horn power Medo-Persia. Cyrus, Cambyses, somebody, Darius, Ahasuerus, somebody, Xerxes, Artaxerxes. I can't remember them all. The 7. And then we come down here and we've got our 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've got Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Bush. Oh, have I messed up? So there's Trump, there's Biden, there's Trump, there's Obama. I work backwards. Last president, 7 thunders. And the 7 thunders take us where? Where do the 7 thunders end?
Second evidence.
There are delineation events that happen under the first and second angel's message. They are prophecies relating to time. Takes us to the Sunday law. So Trump's right there at the Sunday law. That's your 7 thunders. There isn't an 8th. So Trump's always been a part of the 7 thunders. I granted, you know, back here, we just had to believe that he was going to be the last president. Didn't know how it was going to pan out. But when I say we, the movement always held that Trump was the last president. We've got those verses in Daniel. We worked it all out. We didn't make a mistake. We may have lost a bit of faith there for a little while, but we didn't make a mistake.
Yes, I agree that we didn't make a mistake, but we had a different approach. Like we think that Donald Trump, even without Donald Trump, we have an ideology in place, and that's what we are. That's how we answer people. We have an ideology which is Trumpism, and that ideology is one that is going to carry us on to the second advent, and even without Trump. But when Trump came in, okay, those to whom we gave that explanations came back and said, "Oh, you say Donald Trump is the last president. Is that what is really happening right now?" But you know, you had actually given a different explanation. You had given different explanation before, which I'm saying it's an ideology. But now Donald Trump is no longer an ideology. Donald Trump with his ideology altogether. Okay, so I did not believe Donald Trump is not the last president. I believe he's the last president, but I had a different explanation during the period in which he's not the president. Now he's the president. Can I hang on with an ideology or him together with his ideology like before? That is what I was asking. And
I'm not sure how you worked it out when Biden was president. I know how we worked it out with earlier, but I didn't realize anything had changed.
yes. So that one with the Sunday law, do you mean universal Sunday law? Because universal Sunday law is a clause of probations. Or you treating Sunday law as the one 2024 or the universals, the one that you put there in the seventh
The Sunday law of the 144,000 line.
Yeah, which is 2024.
That's how we always used to use it.
Which is 2024. So Trump in 2024 is coming in, and Trump is still going to continue.
We're at the end.
Thing can never be led by anybody else than himself, can it?
Sorry, say that again.
I think his ideology can never be led by anybody else than himself. Can it be? Mm?
I think he's the man for the moment.
Yes, okay. That's fine. I was just trying to imply and think that Donald Trump is never stopping here. He's just going ahead, and we are still going to see him in next dispensations.
So I'm sure he'll be around for a while. He might I mean, Herod died in 4 BC.
Mm.
So the Herod that killed all the infants died when Jesus was born. So I think there's something there, but yeah, I don't think there's anything to suggest that he won't be around for a while. and that people wouldn't want. I felt sorry for Vance. That's probably a poor way to put it. But when Elon Musk said Donald Trump needs to be impeached and JD Vance take his place, Trump's not going to like that. So if anybody's going anywhere, JD Vance could get the boot. It won't be Trump. There's only one throne. There's only room for one cult of personality. So he won't like that JD Vance was promoted in the eyes of Elon Musk or anybody. So yeah, not that I see JD Vance going anywhere,
Yeah,
but he'll go before Trump.
that one
So
is
we need to
okay.
wrap up.
Yes, sir.
We need to wrap it up.
Yes.
So finally,
I really need to go, Philip. I have to work in the morning. It's getting late. Is that okay, Philip?
yeah, that's okay. I was just having a small before you go.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. I see some more messages coming up, but if you can write to me, Grace, I will reply to you. And let's close in prayer. Our loving God in heaven, we thank you for the information that we do have. And it seems like the more information we get, the more questions we have. And that's okay. Please help us to understand what is needed, to sift through the mud and just grasp what is necessary. So, Lord, we just want to understand the Sunday law time period and what is happening externally and what we need to do internally. So I pray for all these members, bless them, the ministries and the families that they represent, bless their sphere of influence and bind us together in your cords of love and truth. We ask in Jesus' name, amen. Thank you, everyone.